Welcome back, everybody, to my second episode of PSA, Passionate Starving Artist. Today, I will be touching on grief. I promise y'all it won't be a sad episode. It'll actually be quite motivating and inspiring, in a sense that grief is what adds fuel to your fire. You will catch me saying that a lot, fuel to your fire, because you need that burning desire to keep doing what you're doing. So let's get right into it. Grief. It doesn't necessarily mean the death of a person, but it could mean the death of a friendship or a relationship, the death of an opportunity, the death of, a lost idea, like the death of an idea. Like you could be clinging on to this story that you've been wanting to tell for so long, only to realize that that story was either told too many times or it just isn't working. And that's okay. That should be your driving force to keep going. So grief doesn't necessarily always have a negative connotation to it. It could be a positive thing. It's just a shift in narrative. So there are apparently 5 stages to grieving. I think there's 7 now, but let's stick to the basics, y'all, because I'm a basic. No, I'm not basic, but let's stick to the basics. The first one I think is denial. Whether that's you're being denied an opportunity or you're self-doubting, which is a form of denial, or failing to accept that something isn't for you, no matter how much you believe it is for you. Sometimes you have to just let that shit go. I still don't know if I can swear or not, but whatever, I'm going to swear. We can beat me out later. You have to let stuff go. You have to let things die. That's unfortunately the circle of life. You live and then you die. That's the inevitable. So with that being said, things are going to die out. Things aren't going to be for you, and that is okay. I strongly live by what is for me will not pass me, and what passes me was never for me. It is okay to mourn the death of a lost opportunity. It's going to happen a lot until you get that one big yes. And you can stand over those fucking graves of the lost opportunities that you had before because they led you to that big one. So denial. You can deny all you want, but you have to accept at some point that it was for you. The second stage of grief is anger. You're going to get angry a lot. It's a frustrating process. Being a creative, being an artist, there are going to be many times that you are just going to be fed up, that you are just angry with the fact that ideas aren't coming. I know I'm angry with myself now because I'm constantly in a writer's block, where I'm like, I've had this story in my back pocket for years. I lived this story. So how am I at a block? Anger, I feel, is a foundational motivation tool in creating because it allows you to set boundaries, not just with yourself, but with the industry. When you're angry about something, for example, me personally, I'm angry that there aren't people that look like me on TV. But how do I go about dealing with that anger? I write my own stories. But even within writing my own stories, I get angry with the fact that, am I really telling what needs to be told for people who look like me? So there's going to be a never-ending cycle in this industry with anger, because you're constantly going to get frustrated with yourself, with producers, with casting directors. Like, there's gonna be ample of opportunities for you to be angry. But for the sake of the art, whether that's writing a song, acting, even producing, when you tap into the things that have made you angry, it fuels into your passion for it. You will only get angry because it means so much to you. So, don't look at anger as people aren't gonna wanna work with me. Oh, this is a flaw that I carry. Oh, what am I getting angry for? No, embrace that part of it, because anger is a huge foundational tool to create. Stage 3 of grieving apparently is bargaining. I love a good bargain, y'all. I know you do too. But for the sake of, grief, it's knowing what you'll feed and pay into. Bargaining is when all these questions come to mind. Questions about your thoughts, questions about the reality of what is happening, whether that's the loss of an opportunity, the failed script, the loss of a person. You're now trying to rationalize, is this real? Is this just my mind trying to play tricks on me? Is this what I have to face? It's what's ultimately going to lead you to the next stage of grief, but you have to go through this phase. Again, it's the journey, it's not the destination. It rationalized that these are all key pivotal points in my life to ultimately fuel me as not just an individual, but an artist and a creative, which leads us to stage 4 of grief, depression. I personally have dealt with depression and anxiety since I was in high school. Depression is the biggest fuel to all the things that I do because it allows me to connect with other creatives, with other human beings, whether they're artists or not. It is the things that I faced in life that made me ultimately the wiser, stronger, and better person that I am today. So when you go through depression, like, you're gonna have those moments of being in a dark space, being alone, having nothing to pull from, no inspiration, no drive, no nothing. Like, you are just in a dark space. And I'm not sharing this to make y'all sad. I'm sharing this to inspire and motivate that it's gonna happen. It's a part of grief in general. It's a part of life in general, that it is okay to not be okay. That is me all the time. But it's also a reminder to check on your strong friends. Because I'll be the first to say I mask when I'm in public. Unless I know you personally, I will show up to your front door crying. But I'm very mindful of the energy that I put out because I don't want it to rub off on those I tend to surround myself with. When you are able to fight through the depression, when you are able to fight through that excruciating pain of being in this dark space, that is what will ultimately lead you to the final stage of grief. Stage 5 of grief is acceptance. When you can accept the anger, the depression, the hurt, the loss, that's when you can finally move on. I hate to use death as an example, but when one of my closest friends passed away, one of my dear friends who's still currently here, helped me mourn that loss. He reminded me that I had to continue to live for them. And that was, for me, the greatest way to define acceptance. Because when you can accept that death is inevitable, you can accept that your purpose here has to continue on regardless. You have to continue on this journey because you've accepted that, one, God gave you your natural born talents. God gave you the drive to do what you do. And God gave you the power to accept what's rightfully yours. Acceptance is ultimately accepting that grief is a part of your process. And I can't even define that for you. I can only define that for myself. So when you can accept and acknowledge that there is no linear process to grieving, that, yeah, you might seek advice from the next person, but how you grieve is not going to be the same way that your Aunt Sue grieves. Like, you have to accept that what is for you is ultimately going to just make you the better creative and artist that you are. So how does grief fuel art? Well, I'll tell you, but I'm no expert. Grief is somewhere to pull from. Grief is a feeling. It's an experience. It's a way for human connection. When you turn your pain into your passion, it is a healthy way of coping. It's a healthy way of releasing all those internal thoughts, feelings, and just heaviness. It allows for personal growth, not just in your art, but you as an individual, as a human being. You gotta be a human before you can be an artist. You gotta be what God created you to be before you can show up as a creative. And when you are able to process in your own space, in your own way, it allows for human connection. No, we're not AIs, we're not robots. We're all here to connect with one another. When you are able to tap into those natural raw emotions within the stages of grief, it allows you to become more authentic, become your true self. It allows for deeper expression. You know, we're not always going to have highlights in our life. We're not always going to be happy. It's that, like I've mentioned in my last episode, be sure to tune in to episode 1 if you didn't tune in already. There's a balance. There's a yin and the yang. There's a good and the bad. There's a dark and a light. You have to really experience grief to know what ultimate bliss and joy is. Because when you are able to tap into the polar opposite, if you are able to turn your pain into your passion, if you are able to find the light in the dark, then you are golden, baby. You feel me? I have a wonderful quote here. Grief, I've learned, is really just love. It's all the love you want to give, but cannot. All that unspent love gathers up in the corners of your eyes, the lump in your throat, and in that hollow part of your chest. Grief is just love with no place to go. Love will be the main topic of my next episode. I hope I didn't sadden y'all with grief. But anyway, tune into my next episode on love. Loving yourself, loving your art, and loving others. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time. Bye.